Vanakkam. Now, we are going to see another important point in the application of Form 1 in peer review guidelines of 2022. We are going to have discussion with reference to Part B. That is, it's a general controls. It is based on standard on quality control. That is SQC1. But this general controls are not applicable for new units. New units are nothing but the units which have been established with less than 12 months. They have been covered under new unit. And here in part B, we are going to have a discussion with reference to part B1, leadership responsibilities for quality within the firm. 2, ethical requirements. 3, acceptance and continuance of client relationship and specific engagements. 4, human resource. 5, engagement performance. 6, monitoring. If you follow all this 6 questionnaire, if you answer this 6 questionnaires, sub questions and everything, you'll be you can do the practice, even you can form the practice and very well planned manner. So we will have to have a discussion on the general controls based on SQC1, and this is not applicable for the new unit. The standard on quality control, it is mandatory by ICA and it is effective from 1/4/2009. Hence, the practice unit is required to establish a system of quality control. So it's a must for every practice unit to have a quality control system. So it is designed to provide reasonable assurance that the practice unit and its personnel comply with the professional standards, regulatory, legal, and ethical requirements. So this is very, very important. So every practice unit must have quality control. So broadly, practice unit system of quality control should include, what are the things that you have to include in the quality control policies? That is in the quality control areas, it includes policies and procedures addressing leadership responsibility, ethical requirements, acceptance and continuance of client relationship, human resources, engagement performance, and monitoring, etc. So this is a must for every quality control system of the practice unit. So this is explained in part B1 to part 6. We will analyze every point with reference to the submission of the questionnaire, because form 1 is a must one for every peer review unit and you have to submit that. So the application of SQC1, that is standard on quality control, will depend on various factors such as the size and operating characteristics of the practice unit, whether it's a part of network or not. So for this, please refer the guidance, implementation guide given to SQC1. So it is there and it is available in our ICA site. Now we are going to start with part B, first part, that is leadership responsibilities for quality within the firm. So who is the leader of the practice unit and who is going to look after everything in the practice unit, that we have to have discussion here. So does the practice unit have a quality control in manual? So first thing is you have to give, that is the practice unit has to submit that it has got a quality control manual or not. Then the firm has to entrust the responsibility for developing, implementing, and operating the firm's quality control system. So who is being enrolled for, who is being responsible for the preparation of development, implementation, and operation of the quality control? And you have to give the specific name and ultimately who is the responsible, whom the firm has to entrust, that is to whom the quality control has to be given, to whom who is responsible for the quality control, that also you have to give, and whether the same has been formally documented and agreed upon by the partners. So first thing, you have to prepare the quality control. It has to be submitted to them, and all the conditions, all the information that is there in the quality control manual has to be properly documented, and every point of that manual should be agreed by the partners of the practice unit. Here the practice unit, they have to agree this manual. that is quality control manual. Who evaluates? Okay, who evaluates the client relationship and specific engagements to ensure that commercial consideration do not override the objectives of the quality control. So, suppose if somebody comes and offer you say 2 lakhs, so can you change the quality manual, control manual? No. So if there is any deviation, that has to be evaluated. So who is responsible for this? And how this evaluation has to be carried out has also to be specifically given in the reply by the practice unit. Whether they are following it or not, everything has to be clearly mentioned. Then the procedure to be followed by the firm to consider to ensure that the fee consideration and scope of services do not infringe upon the quality work and proper documentation as envisaged in SQC1 is maintained. So this is one thing, that is the scope of service. The fees consideration should not affect the SQC reply. How and when the firm's quality control policy and procedures shared with the personnel working in the firm. So that means the quality control manual information should be shared among the staff of the practice unit. How it has been implemented, how it has been shared, that also be given. And see, you have to say yes or no, not applicable. Okay, but this is a point that you have to follow in your questionnaire. Even in practice also it will be useful. Is there any refresher session? Because you might have forgotten. That is manual, personal also would have been forgotten. Even the partners also, they would have been forgotten. They would have that is failed to remember everything. So the refresher session should be there. Does the firm's compensation system provide incentives and advancement to personnel who demonstrate the quality work and compliance with the professional status? Here we can take in 2 ways. Suppose if everybody is complying with the quality of the work and compliance as per the quality control SQC, and if is there anybody who are deviated, and if anybody is affected by the SQC also, whether there is any compensation system to the manual, or is there any proper incentives, those who are following the SQC manual, whether the practice unit is paying any incentives or not, that has to be clearly mentioned. Here, next point number 9, has the practice unit come across any instances where the quality control was overridden? So that means, is there any deviation in quality control? That should also be clearly mentioned. That is the source the firm deployed for developing, implementing, and maintaining firm's quality control policies and procedures. What are the resources from where this quality control is being developed? SQC is being developed with reference to policies and procedures, with reference to manpower, IT tools, library, regular review mechanism. So all this should also be clearly mentioned. Next point is, up to this, we have discussed about the leadership responsibilities. Who is responsible? Who is preparing quality control? If whether you are given the training to the personnel or not, everything is clearly mentioned in this point, in this part B, division 1. That is with reference to leadership responsibilities for quality control within the firm. Next, we are moving to part B, subsection 2, or part 2 of part B, that is with reference to ethical requirements. So ethical means the practice unit has to follow the management, the functioning, everything should be or in adherence with the ICA guidelines. So here we are going to discuss about the ethical requirements. Which of the following procedures does the practice unit have in place for ensuring that the personnel adhere to the ethical requirements, those contained in the code? What is the procedure that every personnel has to follow as per the ethical standard board's code? That has to be clearly mentioned. So here, this has been divided into 6 parts. One is designated independent and ethics partner, who is responsible for all aspects of independence and ethics of the practice unit of partners or professionals. So it's a clear indication by our ICA that a separate partner should be in charge for the ethics requirement. and whether the independence is there with reference to the audit, everything should be clearly mentioned. Who is responsible? If you say yes, then who is responsible? And with all these details, membership number, address, contact number, mail ID, you have to mention here. And point number 3 is the partner same as quality control. So it's a clear indication that the quality control manual has to be prepared by one of the partners of the practice unit. Whether the same person is responsible for the ethical requirement, that also has to be clearly mentioned. Next point is, has the practice unit established a system for identifying all services performed for each client and evaluating whether any of the services impair independence? So that means for all, there are clients, and what are the services you are given, whether the independence of the auditor is being affected because of the service given to a particular client. So that also the practice unit has to specifically give in its application. Then, does the practice unit regularly update register with the changes in professional ethics and independence standards and requirements? So here, the quality control is different. So ethical requirements, there should be a proper policy. And if there is any updation in ICI or any regulatory authorities, whether it affects standards or requirements, that has also to be clearly mentioned here in this form. What checks are put in place to ensure that all the personnel follow the independence and ethics of the policy? Here, personnel means all the staff of the practice unit. What are the things the personnel have to follow with reference to maintaining to maintain the independence and ethical policy? So, person who is in charge of, there should be a person, there should be a partner in charge of ethics, and there should be a policy to be followed with reference to maintaining the ethical requirements with updation. Next one is, which are the following checks does the practice unit put in place that the independence requirements are communicated to its personnel? It has been divided into 4 parts because here they have asked 4 questions. Does the practice unit maintain a list of entities with which the practice unit personnel and others, if any, are prohibited from having any financial and business relationship? That means the personnel should not have any financial or business relationship. So the personal's background also should be analyzed by the practice unit. So if the person is not having any financial and business relationship, then only he will be, he will be asked to look after that practice unit to work. Otherwise, he should not be there. So whenever you appoint any personnel, you have to analyze what is his background, from whom he has got the loan or any business, whether this parties, whether this your personal, employee is doing some business relationship with the client also. That also to be looked after by the practice unit. Does the practice unit make the list available to the concerned personnel so that they can evaluate the independence? So that means a list of the client should be given to the personnel who are going to evaluate, who are going to see the audit. Everything should be clearly given. And if that means indirectly the personnel has to give you a declaration to the practice unit that we are not having any financial relationship, we are not having any business relationship. In that manner, you have to get the letter or declaration from the personnel. Then, are the changes list notified to the person as soon as such changes? If there is any change in the list, that should also be mentioned. Then practice unit should provide frequent reminders of the professional responsibilities to the personnel. So that means a reminder has to be sent to the personnel that you are responsible. What is the actual responsibilities that you should have during the audit? So the practice unit has to send the reminders. So every time, whenever they are allotting the work to the personnel, they have to make the reminder messages to the personnel. Then point number 3, which are the policies, procedures, and safeguards their practice unit has in place to mitigate the threats to its independence? What are the policies? So here, what are the threats? What are the procedures that they have to maintain? Because in order to avoid threats, what are the procedures? Here, point number 1 says, do the engagement partners provide the practice unit with the relevant information about the client engagement to enable to it evaluate the overall impact on the independence requirement. So the engagement partner has to give the list to the practice unit, because the engagement partner is a part of practice unit, and what are the work that they are going to do it with that client that should be submitted to the practice unit. Then next point is the point number 2. Does the practice unit provide training to the partners and professional staff on what constitutes threat to the independence and the safeguards that may be taken to reduce the trust to an acceptance level? So it is a clear indication that every practice unit has got a threat to the independence. So the training must be given to the partners as well as to the professional staff, so that they cannot deviate from the independence policy. Independent, that is, the work should not affect the independence of the practice unit. Then point number 3, accumulating and communicating the relevant information to the appropriate personnel. Suppose if the practice unit has got some information that has to be collected and communicated to the relevant appropriate personnel to consider those points while you are doing the engagement work. How and whom the personnel notify the circumstances and relationship that cause the threat to the independence. So suppose if any personnel they are going for the work, and if there is any threat, that has to be specifically given, and also the practice unit has to explain the circumstances and the relationship that cause the threat to the independence. It has to be clearly explained to the personnel. Then what are the steps taken by the practice unit so that the self-interest threat to independence is mitigated? So if there is any self-interest by the personnel while doing the client work, if it affects, then the practice unit has to avoid those type of threat that creates independence to the work. So this is to avoid this. What are the steps that practice unit has taken? What are the steps the practice unit have taken? Here, it's a clear indication that our ICA say that to mitigate the self-interest threat to independence, they should form a proper step. So even as an auditor in practice, you can do this. Then how the practice unit is mitigating the self-review threats. So the procedure to be followed, that also to be specifically given. Then is there any checklist where the steps have been outlined? What are the checklists to avoid this mitigating threat? So that also to be clearly formed by the practice unit. How the practice unit is mitigating the risk of adversary threats, that also how that is to mitigate the threat. What are the steps that practice unit has planned to take, has planned to give, and this has to be given to the personnel. In case, can the practice unit demonstrate those type of risks to the personnel? That also to be clearly mentioned. So it's nothing but they have to analyze what is the threat that they will have at the time of giving the independence report. So then how the practice unit is mitigating the familiarity threat. So sometimes it should be familiar in all the area, how they are doing it. That also to be properly identified, and they have to be properly demonstrated. Then the practice unit has to study the relationship with the client personnel disclosed in the independence form. So that means you have to have the independence form. So you have to maintain the independence form. Next one is, can the practice unit demonstrate that professional skepticism was used in the entire assignment? That is, in professional manner, you have to you have to do the work, and whether the practice unit has got the capacity to demonstrate all the professional skepticism to the personnel. That also, if there is any list, you have to give. So indirectly, they say that you have to have this demonstration policy to the personnel. and what are the measures that they are taken to mitigate the sale. That also you have to have. Point number 4, what policies and um, what policies and processes and safeguards has the practice unit established with regard to the threats? What are the policies and procedures? Now they say that practice unit does not have any financial interest in audit clients, their owners and officials. So they should not be the financial. That is, a practice unit should not lend any amount to the audit clients, and even the practice unit should not borrow from the audit clients or the owners or the officials. So that will affect the independence. So what is, with reference to that, what is the policies and procedures that they have to follow? Next one is, does the ethics policy of the practice unit emphasize that the members of the practice unit must not have other than business relationship in audit clients? So indirectly, you are not supposed, that is, practice unit should not have any business relationship with the audit clients and their owners and officials. For that, what is the policy that you are to specifically mention? Then, does the practice unit have the policy of rotating out the senior personnel from assurance engagement after a certain length of service at a particular engagement? It is nothing but rotation of the personnel. So job rotation should be there among the practice unit. It is job rotation not only here, it is required for every area. So one person specific, customer, one specific staff should not be there for long time. Normally in banks, for every 6 months, they are giving the job rotation. So here also, what is the length of the service that a person is allowed to do the rotation? Next one is point number 4, whether there is a policy that the personnel declares the acceptance of gifts, hospitality from clients and owners. There normally in banks and any NBFC audit, they specifically say that the auditors should not get any gift or any hospitality from the clients and owners. Whether the same policy is also followed here, that also to be clearly mentioned by the practice unit. Next one is point number 5. Does the practice unit have the policy to obtain annual independence declaration from all personnel? This is what we have already discussed. Every year, there should be a declaration to be received from all the personnel that we are independent, we have not got no business relationship, we have got no financial relationship with the clients and owners of the unit. Point number 6. As a step in the engagement program, is the engagement partner required to sign a compliance with the independence? So it's an indirect indication that the engagement partner has to sign the compliance with the independence requirement. Whether he has signed it or not, that also to be clearly mentioned here. In the case of professional services conducted jointly with the other auditor, is the annual independence confirmed with the other auditor? Suppose we are doing any joint audit, that should be a annual confirmation from the other audit. So in annual independence confirmation that the practice unit has to got. So here it is a indication that the job rotation should be there, and annual independence confirmation from the personnel should be obtained, and annual independence confirmation from the joint auditor should also be obtained. Next one is point 5. Are the number of audits, number of audit assessments held by the practice unit at any time more than the specified number of the audit assignments? So ICA has prescribed the audit assignments. So one chartered accountant should not sign more than this number of assignments, should not go beyond this certification. That's a limit. So whether the practice unit has violated or not, for that they want a specific declaration under the Companies Act or the limit prescribed by the ICA. Is it 60 audits, 60 statutory audit, whether it includes private audit, private limited company audit, everything should be there. So how many audits they have conducted? Otherwise, we have to do another way. So what are the total number of audits whether it's for the listed company, for the public limited company, private company, NBFC. So you have to prepare the list. And that list you have to give annexure to this 5.1. What is the tax audit assignment as per the notification? Suppose if you are doing any tax audit under section 44AB or with the Income Tax Act, that has to be noted here. So you have to prepare the list that you have to incorporate here. And you have to see that whether that limit exceeds that the audit limit exceeds the tax audit assignment. Because if the limit has been crossed, then the practice unit is subject to code of ethics. So for disciplinary proceedings will be taken against those practice unit which have violated this sealing of the audit. 6.1. Has the practice unit accepted assignment as statutory auditor of? So you have to give the list, whether it's government audit, listed company audit, other public company. So you have to give the list whether the practice unit has accepted, and with regard to annual report, which in total exceeds the fees payable for carrying out the statutory audit of the same entity. In case if the more fees are charged, and you have to give the reason why the fees. First thing, whether you have accepted the audit of government audit, listed company audit, other public company audit, and whether the fees is commensurate with the if the company fixes a fees at say 50 lakhs, then if the auditor as practice unit has received 55 lakhs, why they have exceeded the limit of 50 lakhs, that has to be explained properly by the practice unit. For that, they have to give the specific reason. Point number 7, has the practice unit accepted the assignment as an auditor of the concern while he is indebted to the concern which has given any guarantee? So the auditor should not, if the auditor has accepted any audit assignment, if the auditor practice unit or any of its individual or partners have borrowed or indebted to the concerned client, if the limit in case if it exceeds 5 lakhs or 1 lakh or as specified by the Companies Act, whether they have accepted the audit, then if they have accepted the audit, they have to give the reason why they have accepted the audit. So that means what is the liability that the auditor or the practice unit that should have with the client. So there's the practice unit has to give you a specific declaration that the amount borrowed from the client should also be mentioned here. And the indirect thing is they should not violate the Companies Act of 2013 with reference to the qualification category. Next, point number 8, has the practice unit received the fees from a client below the minimum scale of fees recommended for the audit assignment? So now they are coming to the fee structure. So for each and everything, fee structure will be there. So you go to the ICAI site and download the fee structure, and the fee should not be below the scale fixed by the ICAI. If you accept less than the fees, so you have to give the reason why you have accepted less fees than the fees fixed by our ICAI. Charging of more fees, it is not a problem. Charging of less fees, that is minimum less than the minimum scale of fees, that is the problem. And if you accept any audit assignment, that has to be given specifically here. Next one is point number 9. Has the practice unit, being a statutory auditor of the client of any services to the same as mentioned in section 144 of the Companies Act of 2013, being a statutory auditor, what are the other services clients rendered to any services, not only audit, but if you render any services to the same client, that has to be specifically mentioned. So why you have been allowed to do the audit of statutory audit, but you are doing the document verification, you are doing the another assignment from the same client. For that also you are getting some fees. Why you accept the other work? That also should be clearly mentioned here. Point number 10, has the practice unit as an incoming auditor followed the direction of the company not to accept the audit appointment as auditor in case of unjustified removal of the earlier auditor. So it's a clear indication that the ICA supports that, and the previous auditor should not be removed, from the audit due to some unjustified manner. So in my case, I have given one qualified report, but that management has removed me, saying that sorry, sir, you are not adhered to the rules. We are we we forced to remove you from the audit. So if it is an unjustified manner, then that has to be seen. So if you're a new auditor, it's a clear indication that if you're a new auditor, you have to see whether the removal is justified or not. Point number 11, does the practice unit or network as a good and healthy practice make a disclosure of the payment received by it or other services through the medium of different firm or firms in which the practice unit or network or its partners have an ownership interest? So it's a healthy practice, and if the practice unit has got any ownership interest, that has to be specifically mentioned. And if it is not there, then you have to give the reasons. As the practice unit, follow the guidelines issued by the ICA in respect of engagement procured through the tender. So tender, if you are getting any audit through the tender, why you have got the why you have preferred to get the work through engagement, whether you have underquoted the fees or not. So here in tender, the fees are not transparent. Suppose if you are quoting 1 lakh, if I am quoting 90,000, I'll be getting the audit. But my fees of quoting is not known to you. So you are not subject to, you are not subject to any disciplinary proceedings. This is according to me. Okay, is the website of, so here the point number 12 says this with reference to tender. So you have to get a separate list for the assignments which you have got through the tender. Next point is the website of the practice unit in conformity with the insured guidelines, directions on posting of particulars on website by the practice unit. So here, there's a clear indication that the Code of Ethics has given specific guidelines with reference to website formation. What are the contents that is there in the website? You please go to the Code of Ethics manual and see the content of the website, and whether if the firm practice unit has got a separate website, whether the same is being followed by the unit or not, practice unit or not, whether the same thing as a, if you're a peer reviewer, you have to see that whether the practice unit has violated the website norms. If the practice unit say that, yes, we have followed the website norms of ICI, and according to you as a peer reviewer, if the practice unit has violated, then you have to give your observation. So this is also a very, very important point. So it's an indication that a practice unit can have its own website and they have to follow the ICA guidelines. Next point number 14, whether your firm has been reviewed by, that is practice unit has been already reviewed by quality review board, financial reporting review board. Is there any regulator who has done the review of the practice unit? And if yes, you have to give for how many years, what is the name of the entity, who has reviewed the practice unit, and the broad descriptions of the deficit in case if the review is being done by quality review board, financial reporting review board, and everything has to be specifically mentioned in the questionnaire part of form number 1 in part B, session 2. So data submission of the compliance report, because the practice unit has to submit the compliance report to the respective person. What are the date of submission of that compliance? Suppose in case if there is no compliance report submitted, that also the practice unit has to give a specific observation with the reasons here. Next point is, have the government bodies or authorities evaluated the performance of the firm to the extent of debarment or blacklisting? So that means a clear indication that in ethics, if your practice unit has been debarred, if the practice unit is being blacklisted, that has to be specifically mentioned in the ethical requirements, because the peer reviewer at the time of doing the evaluation, they have to peer reviewers, they have to confirm that the practice unit is not subject to any debarment or by the government bodies or authorities, or there is no bar. NEFRA, sometimes they say that you are debarred to do the practice for 4 years, 3 years, or 5 years. And sometimes NEFRA also blacklisted no further audit, or not only NEFRA, any regulator, they can say that the uh, the firm should not be debarred, should not be blacklisted. This is what I want to say about the with the questionnaire part to questionnaire part B, 1 and 2 I have covered here, and we will see other parts in the next presentation. And with this, you have to ensure that that is the practice unit should have followed the ethical requirements. What are the basic things that they have to follow? Everything will be clearly mentioned. There is about the personnel, and they should have the quality manual. So everything we have discussed here, and we will meet in the other parts later. Thank you very much for patient watching of this program. Nandri, Vanakkam.